What if everything you worked for disappeared overnight? No warning, no second chances, just gone. Mike Thompson had done everything right. He graduated from Northwestern University with honors, confident his future was set. He walked across that stage with his diploma in hand, dreaming of a career in marketing, Madison Avenue, skyscrapers, power lunches at the Palm in downtown Chicago. That was supposed to be his life. But the world had other plans. It was 2008, the year the economy collapsed. Companies shut their doors, banks failed, and jobs, they vanished. One after another, offers that once seemed guaranteed were suddenly on hold. Recruiters stopped calling. Emails went unanswered. And in just a few months, the same employers who once courted him were now laying off senior executives, let alone hiring fresh graduates. Mike refused to panic. It's just a rough patch, he told himself. He kept applying, kept networking, kept believing that something, anything would come through. But as weeks turned to months, his savings ran out. First, he had to cancel his gym membership. Then he started skipping meals to stretch his money. By winter, he was defaulting on his student loans and barely affording his studio apartment in the South Loop. Then came the moment he never saw coming. One icy morning in January, Mike swiped his debit card at a 7-Eleven for a $2 cup of coffee. Declined. He tried again. Declined. The cashier didn't say a word, just gave him a look. That was the moment reality hit. He was officially broke. Within days, the eviction notice landed on his door. He had nowhere to go. His college friends? They were struggling too, some moving back home, some barely getting by themselves. His parents, living in a small town in Indiana, were in no position to help. And just like that, Mike Thompson, a former college graduate with a bright future, found himself on the streets of Chicago. No job, no home, no idea what to do next. He walked aimlessly along Michigan Avenue, past the luxury stores and busy professionals, feeling invisible. The same streets where he once imagined walking to work in a tailored suit. He now roamed with a backpack holding everything he owned. Navy Pier, the Bean, Millennium Park, places that once felt like symbols of success, now felt like reminders of everything he had lost. As the sun set and the cold wind cut through his jacket, Mike realized the harshest truth of all. Nobody was coming to save him, and for the first time in his life, he had no idea what his next move would be. Welcome to Hall of Gentle Stories. Where are you watching from? Let's know in the comment below. Make sure you see this amazing story till the end, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories. Let's begin. From business meetings to park benches, Mike never imagined calling a Chicago subway station home. The night after his eviction, Mike Thompson sat on a cold metal bench in Millennium Park, the icy Chicago wind biting through his thin jacket. His backpack, once filled with textbooks and dreams, was now a makeshift pillow. As he stared at the tourists posing for selfies in front of Cloud Gate, the Bean, he couldn't help but wonder, how did I get here? Just a year earlier, he had walked these same streets with confidence, grabbing coffee from Dunkin', before heading to networking events at the Willis Tower. Now, he was counting coins for $1, menu cheeseburger and hoping security wouldn't notice him sleeping there. But that first night wasn't the hardest part. It was the morning after. Mike woke to the sound of footsteps and muffled laughter. Two teenagers stood nearby, pointing their phones at him. One boy sneered, "Check out this loser," while the other recorded the moment like it was a joke. Embarrassed, Mike sat up, brushed the dirt off his jacket, and walked away. He didn't get far before the video hit social media. Strangers whispered when he passed. His heart sank as he realized he was no longer invisible. He was entertainment. The streets of Chicago became a brutal classroom. Each day was a survival test. He quickly learned which gas stations didn't lock their bathrooms and which fast food places wouldn't chase him away for sitting too long. Hunger became a constant companion. One night, desperation pushed him to dig through a trash can outside a Portillo's on Ontario Street. The shame of that moment stuck with him. This was a man who once debated marketing strategies with professors. Now he was scavenging cold fries from a greasy paper bag. But what hurt the most wasn't the hunger or the cold. It was the isolation. Mike saw the world moving on without him. People rushed by in tailored suits, clutching Starbucks cups, talking about deadlines and weekend plans. No one made eye contact. No one asked his name. He often sat near Union Station, watching commuters head home, wondering if anyone even realized he was there. The low point came during a rainstorm in March. Soaked and exhausted, he ducked into a CTA subway station downtown, shivering on the platform as trains roared past. Across the tracks, he spotted his reflection in the grimy glass. He didn't recognize the man staring back, hollow eyes, sunken cheeks, and a defeated posture. That's when the thought hit him. Is this it? Is this who I am now? For hours he sat there, questioning everything. He could give up or fight back. The world had given him a harsh lesson, but maybe there was still a way out. And then came the moment that changed everything. The next morning, he saw a handwritten sign taped to a McDonald's. Window on Wabash Avenue, now hiring. No experience needed. Mike hesitated. He once dreamed of corner offices, not fast food counters. Would you take a job you once looked down on if it meant survival? Mike Thompson stood outside the McDonald's on Michigan Avenue, gripping the rusted zipper of his worn jacket. The golden arches glowed above him like a beacon, one he never imagined he'd need. Through the window, he saw employees moving quickly behind the counter, taking orders, flipping burgers, and handing out fries. He took a deep breath, pushed open the door, and stepped inside. The warmth of the restaurant hit him immediately, a stark contrast to the biting Chicago wind. But as he stood at the counter, his confidence vanished. His eyes darted to the menu boards, not out of hunger, but to avoid the stares of customers behind him. A young manager, probably in her early 20s, approached with a polite smile. "Can I help you?" she asked. Mike's voice cracked. I saw the sign. The one about hiring." The manager's smile softened. "Sure, you can fill out an application." She handed him a clipboard and a pen. Mike sat at a booth near the back, his heart racing. As he filled in the blanks, name, address, employment history, he paused. The line for previous job remained empty. What would they think if they knew he had a degree from Northwestern University? Or that he once pitched marketing ideas to Fortune 500 companies during a summer internship? He handed the application back and left without looking back. For 2 days, he waited, unsure if he should hope for a callback or dread it. Then his phone, a cheap prepaid one he'd bought with the last of his savings, buzzed. "Hi, is this Mike Thompson? This is Sarah from McDonald's. Can you start tomorrow?" The next morning, Mike stood in the break room as Sarah handed him a uniform. The red polo and black visor felt foreign in his hands. As he changed in the bathroom, he stared at his reflection. Gone was the man who once dreamed of corner offices. In his place stood a man who just needed a chance. His first shift was simple: clean tables, wipe down trays, and take out the trash. But shame lingered with every step. He kept his head down until he heard a familiar voice. "Mike, is that you?" He froze. Standing by the soda machine was Ethan Brooks, his former college classmate. Ethan wore a sleek suit and held a Starbucks cup while waiting for his order. His eyes flicked to Mike's uniform. "Man, didn't expect to see you here," Ethan said, forcing a smile. Mike swallowed hard. "Yeah, just working for now." Ethan gave a half-hearted nod. Well, good luck with that." And with that, he walked away. Humiliation washed over Mike. The urge to quit hit him hard. But then he remembered something his dad once said: "Pride won't feed you, son. Hard work will." So Mike kept wiping tables, day after day, shift after shift. Slowly, he began noticing patterns: what customers ordered most, how promotions affected sales, and how the kitchen operated during rush hours. It was marketing in real life. One evening, as he mopped the floor near the counter, he overheard Sarah complaining about low sales on breakfast items. An idea sparked. He took a risk and approached her. "Have you tried promoting the breakfast menu during evening shifts? People might grab a coffee and remember to come back in the morning." Sarah raised an eyebrow but said, "Worth a shot." A week later, breakfast sales were up 12%. That night, as Mike walked back to the subway station, he smiled for the first time in months. He had found more than a paycheck. He had rediscovered his spark. Why do we judge people by their job titles and not their work ethic? This question rang in Mike's mind on a busy afternoon at a McDonald's on Michigan Avenue in downtown Chicago. A question he now felt more deeply than ever. It was a typical lunch rush. The restaurant buzzed with the sound of orders being called, the hum of conversation, and the clatter of trays being carried from the kitchen. Mike moved through his tasks with quiet determination, wiping down tables and restocking supplies. He had begun to find a rhythm in this unexpected role, a rhythm that, despite the sting of his circumstances, had started to rebuild his confidence. Then came a moment that would test that fragile self-assurance. As Mike delivered a neatly packed tray to a table near the front, a sharply dressed customer, holding a steaming Starbucks cup and wearing a well-tailored suit, leaned forward with a tone laced with mockery. "I can't help but notice," the man said, "that you're a college graduate. What happened to a promising future? I never expected to see someone with your credentials working here at McDonald's." The words hit Mike like a blow. In that split second, the room seemed to freeze. Every eye turned toward him, and for a moment, the weight of everyone's judgment felt unbearable. His heart pounded, and a flash of anger surged within him, a mix of hurt and indignation at the unwarranted assumption that his current job defined his entire worth. For a heartbeat, Mike considered responding, letting his frustrations spill over. But as he looked around at the curious stares and felt the eyes of his co-workers on him, he realized that anger alone wouldn't change the situation. Instead, it was a stark reminder of the labels society so eagerly assigns. A reminder that a job title does not capture a person's journey, resilience, or potential. Mike took a deep breath, and in that quiet, resolute moment he made a decision. He would no longer let a single remark strip away the dignity he had fought so hard to reclaim. Every shift, every task, no matter how simple, was a step toward rebuilding his life. He remembered the long nights of uncertainty and the bitter cold of sleeping on park benches in Millennium Park. He recalled the struggles of searching for food and shelter in a city that moved so fast, where success was often measured by the corner office, not the corner you'd slept on. Instead of letting the customer's words define him, Mike chose to let his actions speak louder. With each table he cleared and every order he delivered, he was writing a new story, one where his work ethic and commitment shone through, regardless of the uniform he wore. His resolve grew stronger, fueled by the memory of every setback and every small victory along the way. By the end of that shift, as the lights dimmed and the restaurant quieted, Mike felt a renewed sense of purpose. He understood that the labels imposed by others were shallow, unable to capture the depth of his journey. Success, he realized, wasn't about where you ended up on a resume. It was about the strength and perseverance you showed in the face of adversity. That day in Chicago, amid the hum of the fryer and the rustle of napkins, Mike made a silent vow he would focus on growth, on learning from every challenge, and on never letting anyone's judgment overshadow his inner drive. His path was unconventional, but it was his own, and that made it all the more powerful. Sometimes the biggest lessons come from the simplest jobs. For Mike, that lesson came in the form of a deep fryer at a McDonald's on Michigan Avenue in Chicago. It was a place where the smell of sizzling fries mixed with the chatter of tourists and office workers on their lunch breaks, a far cry from the corporate offices he once dreamed of. But here, standing beside a vat of bubbling oil, Mike discovered something that no classroom had ever taught him. At first he thought the fry station was just a mindless task. Drop the basket, set the timer, shake, and serve. But after weeks of standing there, observing the flow of the kitchen, he realized the deeper rhythm of the work. The fry station wasn't just about cooking potatoes. It was about timing, coordination, and precision. One mistake, a second too long, a moment too late, threw off the entire operation. Mike started to pay attention to the small details, the exact temperature of the oil, the ideal crispness of the fries, the customer reactions when their orders were perfect. His manager noticed. Soon, Mike was learning the cashier system, practicing patience with frustrated customers, and keeping calm when the lines stretched to the door. He observed the cooks at the grill, memorizing every process until he could step in when needed. One afternoon, the restaurant was slammed with a sudden rush of tourists from Navy Pier. Orders piled up, the staff grew flustered, and the manager was nowhere to be found. Without hesitating, Mike stepped up. He gave quick instructions, moved between stations, helped calm the cashier, and motivated the team to keep pushing. By the time the rush ended, the chaos had turned into a smooth, efficient operation. That evening, as Mike wiped down the fryers, he realized something profound. He hadn't just learned how to make fries or run a register. He had learned leadership. He understood the importance of teamwork, the patience required to serve people with kindness, and the discipline to stay calm under pressure. But there was more. In the quiet hum of the kitchen, Mike reflected on how society often looks down on jobs like this. Yet here, he was developing skills that applied to any industry: communication, problem-solving, resilience. The job didn't define his worth. His dedication and growth did. He thought about the people he had met, like Sarah, the night shift worker juggling college and 2 jobs, or Luis, the cook who sent half his paycheck to his family in Mexico. These were the real lessons: humility, hard work, and the quiet power of perseverance. Mike's experience at the fry station became a turning point. He no longer felt ashamed of his uniform or embarrassed when friends walked in. Instead, he wore it with quiet pride, knowing that success wasn't found in the title, on a business card, but in the effort put into every task, no matter how small. That night, as he locked up the restaurant and stepped into the cool Chicago air, Mike looked toward the city skyline. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for sure: the lessons learned at the fry station would stay with him forever. One random encounter turned Mike's fast food job into a $1 million opportunity. It was a Thursday afternoon at the McDonald's on Michigan Avenue in Chicago, and Mike was in his usual rhythm, coordinating orders, helping the new hires, and keeping everything running smoothly. To him, this was just another shift. But what he didn't know was that this shift would change his life forever. The lunch rush had just begun when a well-dressed man in a tailored navy blue suit walked in. He wasn't an average customer. He moved differently, observing, taking notes, watching the workers more than the menu. His presence didn't go unnoticed. The manager, nervous, quickly whispered to the staff, "Corporate's here. Stay sharp." Mike didn't think much of it. He had seen district managers before, but they usually stayed in the back, checking numbers and asking managers about sales. This guy, however, was paying close attention to how things were running at the front. And as luck would have it, he noticed Mike. At first, it was just a glance. Then he watched as Mike, moving with precision, helped diffuse a tense situation between a frustrated customer and a cashier. A missing item in an order, an irritated sigh, and just before things could escalate, Mike stepped in with a calm, confident presence. A sincere apology, a quick resolution, and a free apple pie later, the customer left smiling. The executive raised an eyebrow. Then came the real test. The kitchen printer jammed, and the orders started piling up. The fryers beeped, the drive-thru was backing up, and the cashier was getting overwhelmed. Instead of panicking, Mike adjusted on the fly. He rerouted the workflow, directed employees to different tasks, and within minutes the chaos settled. The executive watched every move. When the rush finally died down, the man approached. "Mike, right?" His voice was calm but authoritative. Mike nodded, wiping his hands on his apron. "Yes, sir. I've been watching you. You don't just work here, you run this place." Mike chuckled. "I guess I just try to keep things moving." The executive leaned in slightly. "Have you ever thought about improving customer service beyond this store?" That question caught Mike off guard. He hesitated, then took a deep breath. "Actually, yes. I've had some ideas about making the order process smoother, reducing wait times, and handling complaints faster." "Tell me," the executive said, intrigued. Mike didn't hold back. He explained a streamlined order system that would allow customers to modify their meals in real time, reducing errors and frustration. He suggested a better way to train new hires, focusing on emotional intelligence rather than just technical skills. He even had thoughts on how the drive-through process could be optimized with better timing. The executive listened intently. When Mike finished, there was a brief silence. Then the man smiled. "I want you to come in for an interview at our regional headquarters. Monday morning? Let's see what you can do beyond the fry station." Mike stood there stunned. Did that just happen? As the executive walked out, leaving behind a business card, the reality hit him. This wasn't just a compliment. This was an opportunity that could change everything. Could you go from flipping burgers to shaking hands in a corporate boardroom? Mike did. Walking into the McDonald's regional headquarters in downtown Chicago, Mike felt like a fish out of water. The polished marble floors, the glass-walled offices, the fast-paced conversations. Everything about this place felt worlds, apart from the sizzling fryers and beeping cash registers he had known for years. He had spent most of his life in a fast food uniform, and now he was stepping into a new reality. His first day wasn't easy. He didn't have a business degree. He didn't speak in corporate buzzwords, but what he did have was real-world experience, the kind that no MBA program could teach. He knew the grind of the kitchen, the rush of the lunch hour, and the frustrations of both customers and employees. And while others in the office saw problems from a distance, Mike had lived them. At first, some of the executives weren't convinced he belonged there. He could feel the skeptical glances in the boardroom meetings. He wasn't one of them. He hadn't climbed the traditional corporate ladder. But that didn't stop him. He poured himself into every project. He listened, he learned, and most importantly, he spoke up. When corporate discussed store efficiency, he explained how small tweaks in kitchen workflow could cut wait times in half. When they debated customer satisfaction, he shared first-hand stories of what really frustrated customers and how simple changes could fix it. Slowly but surely, they started listening. Then came the moment that changed everything. A major store redesign project was on the table. Corporate wanted to make big changes, new technology, a different ordering system, even restructured job roles. The numbers looked great on paper, but something felt off. Mike knew that what worked in a boardroom didn't always work in the stores. So he did something unexpected. Instead of just sitting in meetings, he went back to the field. He spent weeks visiting McDonald's locations across Chicago, talking to managers, employees, and customers. He saw what worked and what didn't, and when he returned to the boardroom, he had something no one else had, real answers. His findings were undeniable. The corporate plan, if rolled out as is, would slow down service times and frustrate both workers and customers. But Mike had a solution, a hybrid approach that merged new technology with on-the-ground efficiency. It was bold, it was different, and it worked. That project became a massive success, and suddenly the skepticism around him faded. In just 3 years, Mike went from being the guy who flipped burgers to being promoted to regional manager. He was no longer just an employee. He was a decision maker, shaping the company he had once only worked for. And as he sat in his new office, overlooking the city skyline, he realized something. Success isn't about where you start. It's about how far you're willing to go. Mike never forgot where he came from and made it his mission to help others. Despite his new title and the corner office overlooking downtown Chicago, Mike never let success erase his past. He still remembered the struggle, clocking in at McDonald's, with barely enough money for rent, watching friends lose hope because they couldn't catch a break. He knew that for many, opportunity wasn't just about hard work. It was about having someone willing to take a chance on them. That realization led him to a new mission. He didn't just want to climb the corporate ladder. He wanted to build a staircase for others. It started small. A conversation with an old co-worker, then a meeting with a local workforce development center. Chicago had thousands of young people struggling to find work, stuck in cycles of poverty, crime, or simply bad luck. Mike saw himself in them. If someone hadn't believed in him, he could have been in the same place. So he created something different, a mentorship program. Not just another job training initiative, but a real, hands-on program where struggling youth could get the same break he did. He reached out to McDonald's franchises, local businesses, and even corporate executives. The goal was simple: help those at rock bottom find a way up. It wasn't easy. Some executives pushed back, questioning why Mike was spending time on this instead of focusing on profits. But Mike didn't care. He knew the numbers. Giving people a chance didn't just change lives, it built stronger businesses, more loyal employees, and a better community. The first class started with 15 participants, teenagers who had dropped out of school, single mothers trying to make ends meet, young men who'd spent more time behind bars than in a classroom. Some doubted it would work. Others had been through failed programs before. But Mike wasn't about quick fixes. He personally met with each participant, sharing his story and teaching them skills beyond just flipping burgers, how to manage time, communicate professionally, and most importantly, believe in themselves. Then came the moment that proved it all. One of the program's first graduates, a young man named Jordan, stood in front of a packed room at a local event. A year earlier, he had been homeless, bouncing between shelters. Now he had a full-time job, a stable apartment, and for the first time in his life, hope. With tears in his eyes, he looked at Mike and said, "No one ever gave me a chance before you." That night, Mike realized something. Success isn't measured by titles or paychecks. It's measured by how many people you lift up along the way. And for Mike, the mission was just beginning. Underemployment is America's hidden crisis, and Mike's story proves why we should care. Mike stood on the TEDx stage at Navy Pier, looking out at the packed auditorium. It was a long way from the greasy grills of McDonald's, where his journey began. The bright lights didn't faze him. He had faced harder things, like wondering if he could afford rent, questioning whether his hard work would ever pay off, and watching talented people get stuck in jobs that barely kept them afloat. He adjusted the mic and took a deep breath. Then he spoke the words that had been on his mind for years. We talk about unemployment all the time, but what about the people who are employed, just not enough to survive? The room fell silent. Underemployment is America's silent epidemic. The single mother working 2 jobs, never seeing her kids. The college graduate flipping burgers, buried under student debt. The skilled worker who lost their job and now stocks shelves just to stay afloat. We don't call them unemployed, so we act like they don't have a problem. But they do, and I know because I was one of them. He wasn't here to give a speech full of statistics, though the numbers were staggering. He was here to tell a story. Mike shared how, despite working full-time, he once had to choose between paying bills and eating a decent meal. How he saw co-workers with incredible skills, people who could manage teams, fix machines, and handle customers better than any corporate executive, stuck earning minimum wage simply because they never got the right opportunity. We love to say, work hard and you'll make it. But let's be honest, hard work alone isn't always enough. Some of the hardest working people in America can't afford a decent life. And it's not because they aren't trying. It's because we don't value certain jobs the way we should. A few heads nodded. Some audience members shifted in their seats. This wasn't the kind of feel-good success story they expected. Every time we call a job low skill, we're telling millions of people that their work doesn't matter, that their effort is worth less. But let's ask ourselves, who stocked the shelves when the pandemic hit? Who made sure people could still grab a meal when everything shut down? Who kept going when the rest of the world stopped? The applause started slowly, then grew louder. Mike wasn't here to complain. He was here with a message. Underemployment wasn't just an economic issue. It was a human issue. It was about dignity, respect, and the right to build a stable life. We have to stop treating jobs like stepping stones and start treating workers like people. We need real wages, real opportunities, and real respect for those who keep this country running. He looked across the room, locking eyes with young professionals, business leaders, and students. Because if we don't fix this now, one day, it could be you. The crowd erupted in applause, but Mike wasn't done yet. His mission was just getting started. The most important promotion is the one you give yourself. The decision to never give up. Mike sat in his new office overlooking the Chicago River, the city stretching out beneath him. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the skyline, the steady hum of the city below, reminding him of where it all started. Just years ago, he was standing behind a fast food counter, flipping burgers and refilling soda machines, wondering if life would ever give him a real shot. Now he was here, not because someone handed him an opportunity, but because he created one. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the framed nameplate on his desk. Michael Carter, founder and CEO. It felt surreal, not because of the title, but because of the journey. Most people think success comes with a title: CEO, manager, executive. But let me tell you something. The biggest promotion in life doesn't come from a company. It comes from you. The day you decide that your circumstances don't define you, that's when everything changes. Mike had learned this the hard way. He spent years waiting for a break, hoping someone would notice his potential. But the truth was, no one was coming to save him. The world wasn't designed to reward effort alone. It rewarded results. And results came from action, not excuses. I used to think I needed permission to be successful. A degree, a recommendation, someone to say, "Mike, you're ready." But no one ever did. So I stopped waiting. I stopped asking for a seat at the table and built my own. His company, Rise Up, had started as a simple mentorship program, just a way to help underemployed workers like himself find real opportunities. But it grew faster than he imagined. Companies started calling, looking for talent. Investors saw potential. The same doors that had once been slammed in his face were now wide open. But it was never about the money. It was about proving that no job was too small to be a stepping stone. If a fast food job could teach me leadership, if stocking shelves could teach me discipline, if struggling could teach me resilience, then I never had a low-level job. I had a training ground. He thought about the people who had doubted him, the ones who mocked him for dreaming too big, the ones who told him he'd never be more than what he was. To anyone out there who feels stuck, who feels like the world has already decided what they're worth, remember this: titles don't define you. Your mindset does. The moment you decide to bet on yourself, you've already won. He glanced out the window one last time, watching the streets below fill with people chasing their own dreams. Some would make it, some wouldn't, but for those willing to fight for it, the path was always there. Success isn't about where you start. It's about how far you're willing to go. Valuable lessons from Mike's journey. No job is beneath you when you have a vision. Every experience teaches you something. Stop waiting for permission. The only person who can decide your worth is you. Hard work alone isn't enough. Take action. Results matter more than effort. Success starts with mindset, not titles. Your belief in yourself is your greatest asset. If Mike's journey inspired you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share your story or words of encouragement in the comments. And remember, your next promotion starts the moment you decide to take control of your future.